So welcome everyone to art class. This is Paul, and this is our second installment of our series here. I just wanted to show you real quick some thumbnail sketches I did of some still lifes and watercolor. As you can see, you can do all sorts of compositions and different colors, and really it's really your preference, whatever you enjoy doing. I like exploring the colors and seeing what mixes well, what doesn't, and just how things can how colors can be combined. So let's go and get started on our lesson for this week. So if you remember last time on our very first art class, I showed you very briefly how to sketch out some water jugs, and I didn't really go into a lot of depth. I just wanted to get an easy start for everyone watching, but I just wanted to show you real quickly, just kind of a catch up, I guess. I'm using a stick of charcoal here. Our paper is 140 cold press. It's rough. It's watercolor paper. And again, to go over from last time, the shapes are basic. They're not perfect, and they don't have to be unless you want something that looks very, very refined and very neat looking. Then by all means, you do that. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just showing how we could draw some simple shapes, and then what makes them come to life is the color. And we want to pick some good color that will bring these shapes out more eye-catching. And really, you can do whatever shapes you want. I'm doing mostly curved shapes, but that's just to give you an idea. Again, it's best to use a pencil, especially if you want to use the shapes that you just drawn. If you want to use that to start painting on. I just did it with charcoal just to show you a demonstration, just how we can draw some basic shapes and then add color to them. Okay, so now I have a pencil, which is the best thing to use if you want to lay down a drawing before you paint. Let's do a picture. Just gonna go straight across. Again, my objects are not perfect, and I do them that way on purpose. So I'm just roughing out an outline here for a water picture. Let me curve that out a little bit. Okay. Gotta make the spout a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, we can also let's add an apple. Now, apples are not perfectly round. They have some imperfections to them. I know a lot of times when you see children paint apples, they're just circles, which is fine. You can do that. I've seen a lot of contemporary artists paint their apples that way, but for me, I'm just going to kind of give them a little bit more natural shape to it. There's the stems. So let's kind of just, there's what we're going to work on right now. So in our first class, if you remember, I mentioned the half flat wash brush, which I didn't use in that first lesson, but today we are. And you can do all kinds of things with this brush, but for now I'm just going to show you how we can easily apply a simple wash to get our painting going. So we have our bucket of water, we've got our watercolors, and we've got our half flat wash brush. So I'm going to mix up just a little bit on the paper. As a matter of fact, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and just wet this background here. We want to put just a nice layer of water on this, and then let's dry up our brush on our towel and just kind of clean that up, just so our color, our background color won't run too much into the objects themselves. It will a little bit, but we don't want too much. So let's get some yellow. Remember, our background is still wet, so it's going to give us, it looks a little strong right now, but once the watercolor dries, it's going to lighten up this yellow background. Okay, good. Going to add a little bit of light green there. Okay. Now we'll let that dry. So we've given our background a couple of minutes to dry. You can use a blow dryer and put on low to help speed up the drying process if you want to. But before we apply any more paint, just don't use your fingertip, but just kind of use the top of your finger just to feel around to see if any parts are still wet. It's still damp here, but I think we can go ahead and get started on our apples and our water pitcher. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So now, as we did in our first class, we're going to use the number 6 round brush. And for the base coat of our apples, we want to use yellow. This is going to be very colorful, still life scene. Okay, so we want to use yellow as our base coat or base color for the apples. Okay, there we go. Let's rinse out. Now for the water pitcher, I'm going to go into some raw umber, which is our brown. And notice how I have almost more water than color. And that's my choice. You can put more color if you want it, stronger. I'm going to put a little bit more on top. There we go. I'm going to add just a touch. With a lot of water on the brush, I'm going to get a dab of cerulean blue, which is our light blue, and mix that in there. Just let it fall in there. Okay. Rinse out again. Let me get another light layer of cerulean blue, and let's let that just fall and blend into each other. You can make this loose, or you can make this a little bit more tightened as far as the way your colors are flowing. It's really up to you. I'm just showing you how I'm doing this particular still life. But it's really, once you get used to working with the watercolors and getting comfortable, then you can start doing it the way you want to do it. That is no problem. Wash out the brush. Now let's add some of our red. Okay. You're probably saying, "Oh, he messed it up." No, I didn't. No. We want to spread that red around, and even bring it over to the other apples. Okay. Rinse out again. With a clean brush, let's move those colors around. All right. Okay. If the camera's shaking, it's because I have my bucket of water on a hook right at the end, or right at the very bottom of this this tripod here. So if you see me shaking, that's what it is. Let's add in some more of our light green, because if you look at an apple, you're going to have a variation of colors. It's not going to be one solid color. Okay. Clean our brush out. Just kind of tidy up the shape here. Really, on practices like these, you can spend 5 minutes on them or 5 hours. It's really up to you, because you can always, a painting is always a building up process. You're building layer on top of layer, and it can be just a quick sketch you want to do, or if you want to get more detailed, then you go in layers and you just build up gradually the painting to where you want it to be. Next, I'm going to get some ultramarine blue and a little bit of Payne's gray. We're going to mix that together. That's going to give us a very rich and dark blue, and then we're going to use that for our shadows. And again, I'm sorry that you can't see my palette, but I'm using ultramarine blue and a touch of Payne's gray for our shadow color. And if you want to put shadows, you can. I'm putting shadows just because it's kind of a habit already with me to put shadows. But you see how I don't do too much fuss, at least not with these. If I'm doing a charcoal drawing, something that's a little bit more realistic, then yes, I'm going to spend a lot of time on making sure the shadow values are correct and all that, especially, like I said, it's something that's realism, or especially commission, But with watercolor, I just think watercolors they're just attractive. Even if it looks a little loose, it still looks attractive. And so we've added our shadow color, again, ultramarine, and a touch of Payne's green. You can see where you can see that color there, pure. It's really nice and dark. It gives a nice rich color. And then for our foreground, we're going to take some raw umber. I'm going to have a semi-wet brush, raw umber, and a bit of the cerulean blue, just a tad, just a dab of cerulean blue. It's going to give us this brown color here. You can have all kinds of fun with watercolors. That's why I really advise anyone who's getting interested in art, or especially painting, to start with watercolor, because watercolor is not as complicated, it's not as intimidating, although you can do very realistic paintings with watercolor. But watercolor is also, I think, like I said, non-intimidating compared to like oils or even acrylics or gouache or something like that. So again, I think that watercolors is the best way to get started in painting, and it's a great way to let loose, to let some stress go, and it's always a good idea to have just a small sketchbook in your bag, a watercolor sketchbook, and a little portable watercolor set, and just have it with you. And you can be sitting waiting in a lobby or something, you can just pull out your watercolors and just start passing the time away, you know. It's great practice too. It's great practice, and one of my favorite watercolor artists always says, you're never alone if you have a paintbrush. And I think that's true. I think that's true. So that was our lesson, or our art class for today. Again, we're staying on still lives because that's a good way to get going, to get started in painting and in art. You can keep your shapes loose like I have with the pencil marks, or you can tighten them up. You know, if you like it to look very neat, that's your choice. But we're gonna stay on watercolors and still life for a while, and probably next time I'm gonna show you some things that you can do with watercolor pencil. So hey, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you to all my Patreon friends. I love you. Thank you for letting me be able to do this, and I hope that we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.